But where we ended up was almost built in with the bricks from the starting point when the government decided we weren't going to stay in the single market. The sort of deal we ended up with became pretty much close on inevitable, it seems to me. There were choice points, but those choice points were shut off very early in the process. And then it was a sort of a slow dawning of the realisation in the government through Mrs May's premiership and beyond that this was the space that we'd carved out for ourselves. Through the May era, the cabinet was very divided. That's no great secret about that, because you had a bunch of folk around the table who thought that what we were doing was absolutely the right thing to do. You had a bunch of folk around the table who thought that leaving the EU was a huge mistake, and Mrs May was trying to manage that big divide in the cabinet. And she tried notoriously through the Chequers deal, which was mid-2018, to build a construct which would have limited the damage, economic damage of Brexit, and would have sorted out the Northern Ireland problem. But at that moment, that sort of very, very fragile coalition she had within the government collapsed with David Davis and then Boris Johnson resigning. And then that set us on the track ultimately for her to lose her job, Johnson to take over, and the deal that we ended up with, this very thin free trade agreement. There has been very quietly a sort of slow thawing of relationships, sorting out the Northern Ireland Protocol. The Windsor Framework is an important stepping stone in that process. There are, of course, lots of discussions going on all the time about sort of very technical issues, but that's all sort of hidden from view. An incoming government can build on that, accelerate that, can make some changes or propose changes, seek to negotiate changes with the EU, which will improve the operation of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. But let's not exaggerate how much can be done. That doesn't take us back into the single market. It knocks the edges off what is not a great deal from a UK's perspective compared to what we used to have in the single market. But the key thing for an incoming government is how do they rebuild the trust that has been so badly burned over the last few years between the EU and the UK government. And they can do that on trade, they can do it on cultural cooperation, they can do it on science cooperation, but critically they can also do it on defence and security cooperation, where the UK is a very important part of the defence security infrastructure of Europe, and the UK showing willing on that score, given the threats we now face from a resurgent Russia, is going to be hugely, hugely important.